In today's podcast, we talk about vices and virtues. You'll learn vocabulary connected to the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues. Can you name all of them in English? You will do after listening to this episode. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello and welcome to the podcast, especially if this is your first time listening. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with more than 50 years, 50, of teaching English between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm not bad. I'm doing quite well, I must say. What about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Everything's good with me. I'm busy with my conversation courses. There's a new course starting very soon. So if anyone wants to improve their speaking, you can join me and a lovely group of students together on Zoom, and I'll help you become a more effective and fluent speaker. And Reza, are you open for private students at the moment, or is your private school closed?
Well, to be honest, I can't accept any more students at the moment of recording this, but who knows when the listeners are going to listen to it.
True.
So I'll give you my information. It's belfastreza@gmail.com. That's my email. Write to me if you're interested in possibly a one-to-one class. So if it's conversation you want, you're better off getting in touch with Craig. But if it's a one-to-one class where you have your own particular special needs or things you want to concentrate on, why not send me an email? You may have to wait a few weeks before I get round to getting back to you, but I eventually will.
And speaking of helping you to improve your English conversation, here is a student on my conversation course, and it's Wessel from Brazil.
Hello, Reza and Craig. This is Wessel from Brazil. First of all, I would like to strongly recommend the conversation course with Craig. For the last 2 weeks, I've been enjoying the course, and it has been a wonderful experience. Additionally, I'd like to suggest a philosophical topic, virtues and vices. That's it. Thank you a lot. Bye.
Thank you for your kind words about the course, Wessel, and thank you for suggesting this week's topic, virtues and vices. First, we'd better explain those two words, Reza. What is a virtue?
Well, a virtue, that's the good word, the positive word. It means having good moral qualities or behaving in a morally good way. So virtue is a noun. You can have a virtue or several virtues. And the adjective from that noun is virtuous. So using the suffix ous. For example, being kind and helpful to others is a virtue.
Or she considered herself very virtuous because she neither drank alcohol nor smoked. So she was a very virtuous person.
Sharing what you have is a good example of virtue.
And a common saying in English, silence is a virtue, they say. So that's virtue, that's the good one. The negative one is vice, VICE, and that refers to bad habits or immoral behavior. For example, my vice is chocolate. I eat too much. So I can say eating too much chocolate is my vice. Of course, there are worse vices than that, aren't there, Reza?
There are worse, but it's a good thing that it's not illegal to eat chocolate, because if that were the case, Craig would probably be imprisoned for many years. He would be considered a vice lord, in fact. A vice lord is a very important person in the world of vice. But no, eating chocolate is not an illegal activity, although it is a vice. When we talk about generally illegal or suspicious activity in a city, we quite often say things like, the city has problems with filth and vice. So filth, dirty things, unpleasant things, prostitution, that type of thing.
Drugs.
Drugs, filth and vice.
Greed is considered to be a vice. That's one of the 7 deadly sins. We'll look at those in a minute. So greed is the noun, and greedy, with a Y, is the adjective. You can be a greedy person, and if you are greedy with chocolate, you don't like to share it.
Do you know anyone who fits that description?
Nobody comes to mind, Reza. So the 7 deadly sins. The 7 deadly sins. Do you know what they are? They're also known as the capital vices or cardinal sins. And it's a group of vices and negative attributes within Christian religious teachings, and they are considered to be contrary, opposite to the 7 heavenly virtues. So, what's the first one, Reza?
Well, I knew a few of these from memory, but there's one or two which I often forget. So it's a good thing I have it written down in front of me to remind me. The first one is pride, Pride. So these are nouns, yeah? Proud would be the adjective, so pride is the noun. And that's the excessive belief in one's own abilities or importance. You yourself think that you are great, you're fantastic, you're important. That is the vice, the sin of pride.
The second one, greed. We've already mentioned greed and the adjective greedy, a greedy person. That's the excessive desire for material wealth or possessions. You have a car, but you want a second car. You have a big house, but you want a bigger house. You have loads of possessions, but you want more and more. You're greedy.
Now, the next word could have 2 different pronunciations. I would say it wrath, but I think some people pronounce it wrath. I've heard.
Wrath.
Kind of think of wrath. Yeah. So let's just do it naturally. I say wrath.
Wrath. The same as you.
Yeah, more or less the same.
For once, we're in agreement on
Yeah.
the pronunciation of a vowel sound, Reza. What do you think of that?
And the spelling might be a bit tricky as well. You probably wouldn't guess that the first letter is W. So it's W-R-A-T-H. So silent W at the beginning. A bit like the word right, W-R-I-T-E. So wrath is an intense anger or violent feeling. So not just normal anger, but intense anger.
You will feel my wrath. The wrath of the gods. You hear that expression, don't you? The wrath of the gods.
Shakespeare also said, a very common quotation which is still used today, hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned, beware her wrath. Yeah, you don't want to make a woman angry by rejecting her. You will know what the word wrath is if you do that. Is it true, Craig? What do you think?
Well, I'm wondering if you're speaking from experience. Are you?
No, I get rejected by them, but I don't often get the chance to reject the lady. But apparently, according to Shakespeare, and he was a very smart guy, if a man does reject a woman, he better be prepared for some serious wrath from her.
Number 4 on the list of the 7 deadly sins is envy. E-N-V-Y. The adjective envious, an envious person. That's jealousy or resentment towards other people's success or possessions, things they own. There's a small difference between envy and jealousy, and that's that if you're envious of something someone has, you want it. Like you want your neighbor's car, or you want a bigger flat screen TV. So you're envious of your friend's TV. And jealousy is more to do with people and relationships. You might be jealous of your partner if your partner is looking at another man or another woman. So you might be jealous of her or his behavior. So there is a small difference, and that's envy.
And Craig, when they talk about these sins in the Bible, the classic traditional translation into English of the Bible teachings of envy say such things as, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, fair enough, Covet, C-O-V-E-T, is not a very useful word. It only really appears in the Bible, these days.
Yeah.
It means don't be jealous of, don't envy thy neighbor's wife, or, get this, thy neighbor's ass. Have you ever coveted your neighbor's ass?
Well, to be clear, that is not the bum or backside of your neighbor. That is another word for a donkey. It's A-double-S. Because in the days of the Bible, many people had donkeys. They didn't have Aston Martins and Mercedes. They had donkeys. So if you really want your neighbor's donkey or ass, then that is envying what your neighbor has.
And it says in the Bible, you should not be envious of your neighbor's ass. So if you've got a neighbor who works out a lot, goes to the gym, better not to look at them. Don't be envious.
And speaking of your neighbor's very good-looking ass, lust is number 5. That's the intense desire for sexual pleasure. Lust, lusting after someone. Preposition after with lust. To lust after something is to have a very strong desire. You really, really want to satisfy yourself sexually, and that's lust.
Is that such a bad one? I've often wondered, what's so bad about lust if you don't actually do anything about it, if you don't bother anyone? Can't you really desire sexual pleasure, but, if it's not appropriate, well, you don't act on it? Is it so bad?
Well, it is according to God. So if you do believe in the Bible and in God's teachings, then that's not a thing that you really want to do. But maybe we can discuss that a bit later when we get to some general questions. Number 6 on the list is gluttony, G-L-U-T-T-O-N-Y. Too much food and too much drink, which is something that Reza and I never have a problem with. Overindulgence. To indulge, to take of too much food or drink. That's gluttony.
Yes, I think this is my favorite sin. Yeah, if I have a favorite. I do like
I thought your favorite would be number 7, the last one.
Oh, well, sloth.
Your favorite animal.
It is my favorite animal. I love a perezoso, a sloth. So sloth is a less common word in English of saying a sloth, a lazy person. Or it can also be the act of being lazy. So it can be the person. A person is a sloth. Or laziness is also called sloth, the activity of being lazy. Or I should say the inactivity of being lazy. Or lack of motivation. So I don't know if my favorite animals are very highly regarded by God. Apparently, you should be a little bit more active than them. God does not like sloth.
No, you need to work hard and not be lazy. So those are the 7 sins. To remind you, pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. Let's look now at the positive ones, the 7 heavenly virtues. What's the first one, Reza?
Well, not surprising since we're talking about ideas from Christian teachings, is faith. So Christianity, it's a religion, and all religions are based on faith. F-A-I-T-H. Faith is the belief in the right things. You got to believe in God and what God wants you to do, including the virtues, yeah. You've got to follow all of them. So faith is top of the list.
And the collocation is to have faith, and the preposition in. So when you're learning words, remember to also think of the collocations, what words they like to go with, and any prepositions that like to go after the word. To have faith in something. For example, to have faith in God. The second one is hope, H-O-P-E, taking a positive view of the future and thinking that the good will prevail. In the end, everything will turn out okay. The phrasal verb to turn out means what will happen in the future. So everything will be okay. Don't worry, have hope.
Charity is a very important virtue, and I think most people would agree with that. So that is the concern for and actively helping other people. Charity, helping people not for money, but just because you want to help them.
Next is fortitude, and you can probably see in that word F-O-R-T, the word fort being strong, forte or fuerte, fortitude, never giving up, stay strong, don't give up, keep going, fortitude.
You won't be surprised at all to hear the next virtue, justice. Clearly, being fair, being equitable, being just, fair is the same as just, with others is most certainly a virtue.
The next one is prudence, P-R-U-D-E-N-C-E, which in my notes says it's the care of and the moderation with money. But the adjective is prudent with a T. And what do you think, Reza? That's not only connected to money, is it? If you say someone's a prudent person, you'd kind of have to say they're very prudent with money, wouldn't you? If to specify money.
Yes, I wouldn't limit the word prudence to refer to money. It often is, but you can exercise prudence in many areas of life. For example, imagine you want to possibly move to a better job and you need to get a reference from your boss. You better exercise prudence because you want him to say something good about you to get a new job, but he might not like the fact that you're going to leave your work with him for a new job. So you would need to be very prudent there. You would need to be careful about what you do and what you say. You wouldn't want to do anything that might offend or bother anyone. For me, that also is an example of prudence.
And did you notice the collocation that Reza used there with prudence? To exercise prudence, you need to be focusing on those collocations, what words go together. And obviously, if you're looking for another job that pays more money, well, you don't want to be greedy, but it might be a prudent move, which means a sensible move. The last one is temperance. Temperance. Again, the spellings you can see in the show notes, inglespodcast.com/518. And that is moderation of things that you need and abstinence from things which are not needed. Abstinence, the verb is to abstain from doing something, which is to resist something. So in other words, it means that you should not want too many things, only focus on the things that you actually need, and don't worry about things that you don't need. Abstain from them. Just have the things that you need as far as food and shelter and clothing, etc.
There was a while when the word temperance, above all, referred to alcohol. Not anymore necessarily, but certainly in British and Irish society, if you go back about 100 years or so, or maybe 150 years, there was a very active movement to try to convince people not to ever drink alcohol. So as Craig was saying, it's about abstinence. And all over England and Ireland, there were temperance leagues, associations of people who thought that drinking alcohol simply led to problems. It wasted money and time, made people do silly things. And we know that that certainly can be true sometimes. So temperance in that context refers to never drinking alcohol.
So there you have the 7 heavenly virtues. To remind you, faith was the first one, hope, charity. Faith, hope, and charity, they go together, don't they? Fortitude was next, justice, prudence, and temperance. So let's look at these 7 heavenly virtues and 7 deadly sins in context. Reza, what are your virtues and vices?
I don't know if I have many virtues at all, but...
Oh, yes, you do. Come on, be honest. Don't be modest.
Well, you know what? I tell you what, then I am going to be very honest. I have a virtue, I believe, but it's not on the list as one of the official virtues. But I think I have it, which is, for me, an important virtue in a person, and I like to think that I show it, is honesty. But it's not on the list, is it, as one of the official 7 heavenly virtues? But I do think I'm a pretty honest person.
Maybe it should be on the list.
I
Maybe
think it
it's
should be.
missing. Yeah, yeah. For me, I think the closest is probably charity. I like to think I'm kind and friendly and open and to a certain extent giving and helping others. So probably that's the closest. What about your vices? Mine's greed, obviously, with chocolate.
I don't think I'm a particularly proud person. I wouldn't say pride is much. Greed, not more than the average person. I'm not very envious. I am lustful at times. Let's not go into that. I get gluttony. Yeah. So yeah, the last 3: lust, gluttony, and sloth. I think I do demonstrate a certain amount of all 3 of those at times.
Yeah, gluttony a little for me, but definitely sloth and lack of motivation would be probably the biggest one. Yeah, for sure. Let's look more widely now at today's society. What vices do you think are common in today's society? And that could not necessarily be the ones on the list.
What vices are common?
Selfishness, I was thinking.
Yes, so not necessarily our 7 official ones. Selfishness, although envy has always been around and always will be, but I think it's very heightened these days because of social media. People like to present an image of themselves as being fantastic and isn't their life brilliant? And let's be honest, a lot of people hope that you envy them. They want to be envied. They want you to think, lucky so-and-so. I wish I had their life.
What's a so-and-so?
A so-and-so is another way of saying a beep. Instead of saying a rude word, like an hijo de la Gran Bretaña or something like that, you can say a so-and-so. He's a lucky so-and-so.
I think society's definitely turned very selfish. I think people care less about their neighbours and other people they don't know. I don't think they care very much these days, which is a shame. And envy as well, as you said, is probably a vice.
Greed as well. Well, there's nothing new about greed, but I wouldn't put greed down to modern society. Greed has always been around, I guess.
Although environmental negligence hasn't, and that's neglecting to take care of our planet, neglecting to look after animal species and where we live, our atmosphere, the air we breathe. That's quite a new vice that's crept into the way we treat the world.
Being someone who values honesty a lot, the lack of honesty, in other words, the vice of dishonesty is something which bothers me. Yes, people have always told lies. There's nothing new about that. But for me, a modern development is that for many people, dishonesty is perfectly okay these days. So I think in the past, people did lie, probably no less or more than today, but it was definitely a bad thing and you didn't want to get caught doing it and you knew you shouldn't, but occasionally, under certain circumstances, some people might have lied. Not now. Nowadays, there's loads of people think you can lie absolutely as much as you like to get your way. If you get your way and you're delighted to do it, it doesn't really count because you got your way.
What does get your way mean?
To get your way means to achieve what you wanted to achieve. And I could mention some very famous people, politicians, in fact, but let's not get into that. As they say, I think we very much live in a post-truth era, sadly. Something which bothers me because I love the truth. And it really bothers me that I do live in an era of post-truth. The truth doesn't really matter. Did you get what you wanted? Did your agenda get put in place? Well, it doesn't matter if you lied then. And I really hate that the word's like that now.
I think it's going to get even worse with AI and fake news and knowing what's true and what's not true. It's going to get more complicated in the years to come. So I'm not very optimistic about that. What about addiction? And here I'm thinking of addiction to drugs and alcohol and materialism. Would you consider those to be modern day vices?
Materialism is certainly not a new thing, but I think more people are obsessed with material things now than was the case some years ago. But there's nothing new about it. But it's kind of almost accepted as okay these days.
Yeah.
You know, it's like to be poor for many people is not cool. But we're talking precisely about supposedly biblical teachings. Does it not say something about blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth?
And the meek are the poor, right?
Meek
The
are the
people
poor.
who don't have many things.
And don't even ask for things, yeah? People who don't have much and don't make a fuss and don't want everything. Apparently, according to the Bible, they're going to inherit the earth. It seems that a lot of people who call themselves Christians have forgotten that. I'm not sure how they're going to get through the gates of heaven, because apparently it's easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than to get into heaven if you're rich. But a lot of rich Christians seem to ignore that fact. I didn't write the Bible. I'm just a messenger. That's what it says, and it doesn't, isn't it?
Well, we'll see. We'll see in the future if the meek do inherit the earth come the revolution, perhaps. But now it's your turn to practice your English. What are your virtues and vices? We would love to hear them. Are they the same as ours? And do you have any opinions on what we've spoken about? We've told you ours. Why not share your vices and virtues and practice your English? You can do that by sending us a message. Go to speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. And Reza, how can people contact us by email?
If you want to write, you can write to Craig. His email address is craig@inglespodcast.com, or to me at belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you're a Spanish speaker, and we know that many of you listeners are, and you would like to study for free, why not visit the Mansion Ingles website? You'll find courses and lots of material to help you improve your level. And there are also some paid ebooks and audios for self-study. You'll find those in the online store at store.mansioningles.net.
As always, as we do in every episode, we'd like to thank our Patreon sponsors. And the people who support us through the Patreon program, they donate as little as $1.50 per month. And as a thank you for their help to keep the podcast going, we give them instant access to audio transcriptions. If you're interested in joining the program, there's a link in the show notes. It's patreon.com/Ingles podcast.
Unfortunately, we don't have time to thank you all individually. There are just too many on the list, and we really do appreciate that. But we will say hello and thank you to our latest Patreon supporters, and they are Charlie, Orlando Olivares, Francisco Almas, Milagros Cerveso, hello Milagros, and Ignacio Gil Ruiz. Thank you to you, and to everybody who is supporting us on Patreon. Now, we don't know what we're going to be speaking about next week, but we promise you there will be a podcast. So if you have any ideas, let us know. Until next time, have a wonderful week. Thank you for listening this week. It's goodbye from Reza.
And it's bye-bye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.